Okay, it's good. Hi guys. How's it going? It's so hot. You guys, we're emulating the desert to talk about the Sphinx today. So if you can imagine, this is what it feels like in front of the Sphinx right now, maybe. We can all do remote viewing. Is that good? I was joking that many of my most esoteric lectures, there's usually something that happens where there's not many people and the recordings never work. So it's just how it goes. I'm not going to try to control it. So today we are talking about sphinxes. Everyone has 2 bits to offer on the Sphinx, it seems. So I've taken this journey of trying to look at the Sphinx over several years. And recently, in the last years, I had a lot of just crazy synchronicities and dreams where stuff was told to me in the dreams, and then I looked it up and it was true, so it was crazy. So I had like a weird little relationship with the Sphinx for a while. So we're going to look at the riddle of the Sphinx and what it really means that no one seems to be able to figure out, and maybe I didn't figure it out either, but I'm just going to offer you guys what I did figure out, and maybe it'll help in the larger scheme of figuring it out. How's that? So everything I'm going to talk about today is from many different sources and cultures, because the thing about sphinxes is that they're all over the world. Without exception, almost every single culture has a version of the Sphinx. So it becomes more difficult to pin them down and figure out exactly what we're talking about when it's so widespread, because everyone has all these ideas. But we're going to look at a couple of sources since the Jewish folks were in Egypt for so long. We get a lot of material about the sphinxes from the Bible, so we'll be using the Bible. Also Egyptian sources, pagan sources, stuff like that. So, and Chinese too. There's a lot of material about sphinxes in Chinese Taoism. So we'll be talking about that as well. But just remember, when we say the Sphinx, everyone just thinks about, the one in Egypt, but they're all over the place. So try and remember that one in Egypt is only representing the idea of the Sphinx on a much larger level, right? That is global. So if we're going to understand what the riddle of the Sphinx is, we got to know what's a Sphinx. What are we talking about? So you guys, everyone thinks of the Sphinx, and they think of the Sphinx in Giza. This is going to be really Dr. Seussy today. They think of the Giza Sphinx. So we know it's what? It's a hybrid creature that is made up of several other creatures, right? It's got a person's head and a lion's body. Now, some sources say it used to have wings. The one at Giza at one point had wings. Some scholars say that was a Horus falcon behind it, and it wasn't like the Sphinx's actual wings or whatever. But if you look at sphinxes everywhere else, they all have wings, right? So it's not that weird to think that that Sphinx had wings too, because if you go all over Egypt, all the sphinxes have wings, right? Some of them only have lion bodies and then human heads. Now, the human head on the Sphinx at Giza, some people think maybe it wasn't always a human head. It could have been a lion's head that then some egotistical pharaoh put his own head, this is a theory, put his own head on the Sphinx, and it was actually a lion, so this guy just usurped the Sphinx and put his own head on it. That's a theory, right? So we're going to get into some particulars of the animal symbolism with it. But just remember that generally a sphinx is a hybrid of either a lion, a man, an eagle, and a bull. It's usually one of those things in different orders. No matter what kind of sphinx it is from anywhere in the world, it's usually going to combine one of those kind of critters, right? That's what you're going to be looking at. The oldest dated sphinxes they have found are in Egypt, and they carbon dated one, whatever that is good for, to 9,500 BC. Just to give you guys an idea. So these are old, right? 9,500 BC? That's stalactites we're talking about. These things have been around a while. That's a long time, okay? No one's really certain when the Sphinx of Gaza dates to. There's all kinds of theories and arguments about that, so we're not really going to bother with it because who cares? It's just really old, is the main point, right? So the word Sphinx, it's funny that we all call the Sphinx because that's actually totally not the name of it at all. I know. It's like how we call Native Americans Indians. You guys need to understand that the Sphinx is another Native American Indian situation where the Greeks specifically didn't care what the people there called it. They just gave it their own word. So, Sphinx is a Greek word, and it actually means to strangle. To strangle, specifically a strangle, you guys. I learned this in Kung Fu. I'm not a total weirdo, although I am a weirdo. Strangle is not the same as a choke. A choke is when you cut off the oxygen supply from someone's trachea. A strangle is when you stop the blood flow. So a strangle is a very specific reference to a stopping of blood. Okay? To strangle and sphinx is also related to sphincter. Right? A sphincter, I know, this is so fun, right? Is a hole that closes in a muscle. Right, that constricts and expands, right? So it has an idea of constricting also, to cut off the blood supply. That's what the word sphinx actually means. And in Greece, a sphinx was a terrible creature that would totally eat you. They were not nice, they were not cool, they were people eaters that would punish sinners in Greek mythology. And we'll be talking about the eating thing with them in a little bit, but it's kind of funny because they would go like, you know, a sphincter is just your whole eating system is like one big long sphincter, right? When you guys eat something, it goes into a sphincter, then comes out of a sphincter. So it's your whole sphinx is all of your insides, right? If that's what we're talking about. So that eating and evil is that sphinxy sphincter thing. So the Egyptian word for sphinx was very different. They had a hieroglyphic interpretation of sphinx, which was Shesep Ankh. And that has various variations of that word, which means living statue or a stone that is alive. And it's very specific. This is not like a metaphor. And it was specific. The name in Egypt had to do particularly with the eyes of the Sphinx contained life, and that the statue was alive. So here in the Egyptian interpretation, we're talking about like a golem, basically. You guys know what a golem is? It's like when people or rabbis would make a man out of stone, out of clay, out of mud. So if you listen to the Egyptian name of a Sphinx, now it's like a golem. Right? It's like this living thing that they made through magic or whatever, put life into the stone. It's called also the living creature. Living creature is the interpretation of it. Now, this word living also means perfect or complete. Okay? So when you think about these terms of like something perfect or complete that is a statue that is alive, what are they talking about? There's this giant rock beast that they call this living, alive creature. Why would they name it that? What are they talking about? Well, this word, living creature, is important because there's another group of people that also gave it that name. Now we go to the Hebrew word that is for Sphinx, which is a very specific word. They're called the Holy Hayat. And that's H-A-Y, sometimes there's two Y's, H-A-Y-Y-O-T-H, which means living creature or perfect creature. Same word as that hieroglyph word, right? This living creature, in Hebrew it comes from hayat. Hay is to live, like l'chaim, to life. So it's that same high that's in the Hayat, which are described very specifically in several parts of the Torah. They are called, the holy Hayat are revealed in the vision of Ezekiel and in the books of Revelations and in several other places. Are you guys all familiar with the vision of Ezekiel? Okay, we're going to talk about that a lot in a minute. I made a little diagram of the vision of Ezekiel, which is really bad, but you'll understand it in a minute. These Hayat in the vision are described specifically as living creatures that move in 4 directions. 4 directions. They are a lion, an ox, an eagle, and a man, but not a regular man, a higher man, or an angel man, a realized man. Not just you, sorry, no offense, or me, but this venerated or elevated human. Okay? 4 creatures that move in 4 directions. Weird, right? What are they talking about? This Hayat is also called by another name. You guys want to know what the other name that it's called? This is so crazy. When I figured this out, I almost flipped my wig. Cherubim. Cherubim is the other word for these sphinxes. Do you guys all know what what do you guys think of when you think of a cherubim? If you guys had grandmas, you probably think of them as those chubby little baby angels. You know, all the grandmas have like cherubs all over the place. The cherub. What do you guys know about the cherubs? They're these fat, little squishy baby angels that are responsible for what? Cupid, for love. They're the love angels, right? That just float around in their little fat baby selves, shooting arrows at everybody. Well, how is that the same as a strangler? What are they talking about? So, actually depicting cherubim in the form of fat little babies didn't happen until after Catholicism had way taken everything over, and all the Renaissance Catholic painters were like, these sphinxes are really scary looking. We don't want to paint them like that anymore. We'll make them fat, nice little babies. And that's exactly how mistranslations occur. Because of that. Because of the cherubs. Okay? Cherubs are the Hayat. They are not little fat, cute little babies. So, this is something that is, I think, a very large error and confusing on the part of anyone who's interested in angels. So you guys know there's different levels of angels, right? So there's cherubim, there's gibberim, there's rephaim, there's all these different ophanim, there's all these different levels. Seraphim. Most of you guys have heard the word seraphim, right? So those are just all different hierarchies in the levels. So the cherubim are the second highest on the levels of the angels. The second highest. Okay, so they're like a big deal. They're not schmoes. They're not just like, little dudes. They are in charge. Okay? The highest is the seraphim, which we're going to talk about in the Ezekiel vision. So, let's talk about the Ezekiel vision. So this is going to be pretty ghetto. Sorry. You guys ready for ghetto? So this is the vision of Ezekiel. You guys all see? So this is what Ezekiel describes when he sees it. You guys can all look at it afterwards. I'll leave it up. There's these different levels. So basically, the bottom level is these 5 rings. Do you guys all see those 5 rings down there? They are the Olympic rings. 5 gold rings. These are called the ophanim. Okay? The ophanim are fiery wheels that are full of eyes, and they have like spokes, and they connect in the middle. Those are the wheels at the bottom, the ophanim, right? Basically, these are all terrible. Bullshit. Ophanim represent the level of existence that we're all hanging out in right now. The Ophanim can also be described as the Ouroboros, okay? The continuing cycle that we just keep doing over and over and over again, right? This level here, the square, you'll see there's 4 corners that all extend in 4 corners. Those are 4 cherubim in each corner that go out in the 4 directions. That's what you saw above. So you get all this stuff with people, you know, fighting with each other, giving birth, dying, doing all this stuff. And then the level directly above that, that's where the sphinxes are. That's where the cherubim are. They guard the 4 directions. In the Bible, it is the cherubim who guard the Garden of Eden. They guard the tree of life in the Garden of Eden. They keep all y'all out of the Garden of Eden. No passing through. No access. Denied. Right? Unless they accept you in there. Unless. Right? So you think you got some zhuzh, you can try and go through the Sphinx's gate, which we're going to be talking about in a minute, okay? They guard the gateway into everlasting life. So if you want to get out of this, blah, and then get up here, which is all, yeah, then you have to go through the cherubim. There's no other way, okay? Up here, we have this ring of 7 6-pointed stars. Those are the seraphim, okay? Those are all right next to the notorious God, who's here in the center, okay? You guys know what's cool that I'm talking about this right now? Do you guys know what's happening in the sky right now, tonight? The 7 stars of the Pleiades are forming a crown around the moon. What? Just like the picture. I saw that and I was like, what? This is happening in heaven right now. Okay? So good. So, the 7 sisters are different than the seraphim, but it's pretty good. And one of the 7 sisters in the Pleiades is Maja. So, pretty good, right? So these guys, who are all awesome, come up and guard the one, the infinite, the Ein Sof, Sophia, whatever name you would like to express, for the face of God upon the waters as reflected. Can't ever look right at it, but that's what Ezekiel saw in his vision. That's the description of it, okay? Does that make sense? Okay, so this, you guys, is shape, you guys see, like, the shape of this is what? A pyramid? The tetramorphs, the cherubim, oh, I didn't tell you guys the word tetramorph yet. The cherubim are at the gate to what? The pyramid. Where's the Sphinx in Giza? At the gate to the pyramid. How did you get into the pyramid? Through, you guys, I was talking before, a lot of people got here. The underground chamber in the Sphinx was a literal passageway to get into the pyramid. So it's actually physically literal, not just metaphorical and spiritual. You guys, really good spiritual truths are spiritual, metaphorical, and physical. Right? Because if it's true, it's true. It's everywhere. Right? So, that is the vision of Ezekiel, and that is what the Sphinxes represent. They're the cherubim that guard the entry to the big escape from the circling serpent. Right? So, these cherubim are like the guardians. And if you look, there's also, do you guys know the Ark of the Covenant? Right?
Yes.
These extend to a lot of good secrets, right? You guys are learning so many good secrets today. The Ark of the Covenant is described, it has cherubim on the top, on the gold lid, on the cover. There's a cover to the Ark of the Covenant. There are cherubim on the top, guarding the top, facing each other. The cherubim on the Ark look right at each other. They're symmetrical. They oppose each other. and they go like crisscross, right? They're equal and symmetric mirror reflections of each other, okay? And they sit on the top of the Ark of the Covenant, and they guard it from anyone who's not cool, little eyeballs peeking in there, looking at it, right? No peeking. You can't get there unless the Sphinxes okay it, right? So they would be employed as guardians all over the place, right? This idea also extends into the concept of the griffin, right? You guys know about the griffins? So griffins are eagle lions, right? So they leave out the ox and the man and simplify it to just the eagle and lion, and sometimes they're shown just as a winged lion, okay? All over Asia, there's these winged lions. Okay, this is so good. They're called simorgs. Simorgs. If you guys are from Persia or you go to Iran or anywhere in the Middle East, they'll have all these winged lions all over the place. And these are sphinxes, these are cherubim. Okay, and they're called simorgs. They're also sometimes only birds, only eagles. So here, this is going to get confusing, okay? I found a connection between sphinxes and phoenixes. I know this is going to be weird. Maybe like all the Dungeons and Dragons dorks are right now going, sphinxes and griffins are not the same thing at all. They're two totally different creatures, and so is a phoenix. Okay, I know, it's weird and confusing, but check this out. Do you guys know who said the Sphinx and the Phoenix are the same? Madame Blavatsky, whose nickname was the Sphinx, who's sitting there watching all you guys right now. So I brought my handy-dandy secret doctrine that Blavatsky wrote, and on page 618 of the second volume, she says, 618, the simorg is in reality the same as the winged Singh of the Hindus, which has anyone drank Singha beer? You guys know there's a Sphinx on there. It's cool. The Singh of the Hindus and the Sphinx of the Egyptians. It is said that the former will appear at the end of the world as a monstrous lion bird. So now we have a link to the apocalypse mythology. Through good old Madame Blavatsky, the Sphinxes are somehow related to the apocalypse in the form of their burning bird form. Okay? So the burning bird is interesting, and the phoenix idea is interesting because, for those of you guys who know what the seraphim are, you guys know what seraphim means in one translation? Fiery serpent. So now we got on the tippy top these fiery snakes, and on the bottom, holding it, we got the fiery bird. So it's bird-snake stuff, right? Where do we see the birds and snakes in other places? The caduceus, Quetzalcoatl. Now we're talking about the winged serpent, right? So the two, when you put it's really crazy. When you put the snakes and the bird together, now you get this other totally different symbol. Right? Now, the phoenix, we all think of it as this like cute little bird that just burns itself up and then gets reborn from its ashes, right? Well, in Egypt it had a very special significance in terms of immortality. So the way to think about how can a sphinx and a phoenix be the same thing? Well, here's a clue. The word phoenix means purple blood, or the place where the blood mixes together, the red blood and the blue blood, and it's purple. The word phoenix means purple. Sphinx means strangle the blood or stop the blood, right? So there's something with both of them in the blood. I don't know what it is, but I know that. And this blood, so in Chinese mythology, the phoenix is called the vermilion bird or the scarlet bird. It's also called feng huang, which is like bird of heaven or heaven-winged bird, right? Feng huang. So it's red. And in China, it's a gateway. You have to go through the Phoenix to enter temples. Have you guys ever been to China? You see those big red gates? How many of you guys have been to eat at a Chinese restaurant and they have a big red gate outside with like the little thing, you know what I'm talking about? That's called the Red Bird Gate. And it is the Phoenix, or vermilion bird, or fanghua. So now not only do we have a blood link up between the Sphinx and the Phoenix, but it's related through gateways. Okay? You guys catching me? So whether or not they're the same or they're different, somehow they're providing the service of a portal. Okay? And specifically, Madame Blavatsky in that reference says they'll be opening a big portal for the apocalypse, whatever that may be. Right? Because we don't know what it is. Or if it's happening now. Maybe. Right? The more you know. So, okay, now we're going to go into someplace very exciting. Are you guys ready to go with me? Yeah. Okay, let me know if you can't keep up. So, then I tried to find out, what did the Egyptian people call the Sphinx? What did they call it? What did they talk about it? So we got like this hieroglyphic thing. We know what the Greeks called it. We got all these different words. It's kind of phoenixy. But what did Isis call the Sphinx? Like if she was real and alive, what word would she name it? So I had to go through this great big rigmarole to find this information. I was like, has no one else wondered that? I can't be the first one to wonder this. So I couldn't find it anywhere, and I only found it because Google Books had a search on this super old book from like the, I don't even know, like 1700s or something that mentioned it in there. Like one of those old traveler books, you know? And that's where I found it out. So, the Coptic word for the Sphinx of Giza is Bel-Hit. B-E-L-H-I-T. That's do you guys know who the Coptic people are, first of all? Nobody knows, and they're almost extinct. The Coptic people were supposedly the original indigenous people in Egypt. So like equivalent to the Mayans in Mexico, the Native Americans here. They were the indigenous people present in Egypt. They are almost all extinct because of Christians, Islam, Greece, Rome. Everyone went into Egypt and just murdered all of them. Murdered all of them. The gnarliest was the Christians. When Rome took over, Theodosius just killed all the pagans, like millions of them. So all these Coptic people. Now if you go to Egypt, you can still find Coptic people. They're in Christian churches. They all had to convert to Christianity. So almost all of the Christians in Egypt are Coptic. And in fact, the Egyptian Coptic Church is the closest to original Christianity than pretty much all the other churches. It holds the closest to the original teachings from Alexandria.
What is that a spell? Is it Greek? Coptic?
There's no Coptic. No, not on the Rosetta Stone. And Coptic is not the same as hieroglyphic. P.S. Okay? It's really confusing. And you guys have to know, Egypt has been just like a big party for everyone to come in and take whatever they want too. So we got like these things we're trying to figure out. We got multiple countries of people coming in and doing all this stuff there. And then we get all the original people that know what it is dead. So you guys understand the dilemma? It's a big problem. How do we figure this information out, right? So, Bel-Hit, that Coptic word, means, literally translated, one whose heart is in his eyes, or one who carries his intelligence. The word heart and intelligence have the same meaning in a lot of places, like China. They call it your heart-mind, meaning that our hearts have an individual sentience and consciousness that is separate from your brain's mind. Okay? You guys have any of you guys heard this before? There's your brain, and then your heart brain, and then you also have a gut brain, and then you also have like a gonads brain, right? There's all these different brains. They all fight against each other to get what they want. That's the story of people, right? In a nutshell. So, Bel-hit, the one whose heart is in his eyes. Well, what do you guys, that specific word to describe the Sphinx was a living creature because they could see its eyes. Its life was in its eyes. Its eyes were alive. So it had this aliveness in its eyeballs somehow. Okay? The other word they would translate Bel-hit as was watcher, or one who watches, or guardian, or sentinel. Okay? So it's a watcher. How many of you guys have heard that word watcher before? If any of you guys have read the book of Enoch, what do they call the majority of angels in the book of Enoch? The watchers. Okay? So again, we have cherubim, they're a kind of angel, and they're an angel who watches, who's sentinel. Sentinel and sentience, right, come from the same word. So that's consciousness, that's awareness. They're awake. Right? Awake is the other word for Bel-hit. Someone who's paying attention, knows what's going on, right? Pretty simply, the watcher is someone whose eyeballs are open and not closed. It's pretty simple, right? So, this one who is awake or aware. So if we're thinking about the riddle of the Sphinx, and we find out the original people called it someone who's watching, what are you guys going to do now? What's happening in your brain? What are you going to think? You know what I thought? What is the Sphinx looking at? What's he watching? So if we follow the Sphinx's gaze, he's looking at a very particular thing. Okay? The Sphinx in Giza faces due east. Due east. Okay? The Sphinx in Giza faces due east. And at every spring equinox, it lines up exactly with the constellation Leo. Okay? In heaven. You guys know what happens on the spring equinox? The Sphinx and Leo look right into each other's eyeballs. Like what? The Ark of the Covenant. On the top of the Ark of the Covenant when the two look at each other. Right? So the secret of the looking is what is the Sphinx looking at? There is a very special star in the eyeballs of the Sphinx when he looks at the constellation of Leo. It is called one of the four watchers. The four watcher stars. So now we got to go back to my little ghetto diagram. Okay, this is where it gets, it's a little complicated, but it's actually really easy. Because there's only four. So, you guys are all familiar, correct, that there's this tradition of the four directions, right? So if you have any culture, I don't care who you talk to, everybody's going to know about the four directions, okay? I don't care if you're in Lebanon, Australia, the North Pole. You can talk to an Eskimo. They're going to tell you they know about the four directions. Okay? Four directions are the simplest form of any magical or religious system, period, without exception. If you look at what the four directions form, what's right there in the middle? The cross, which is, of course, the basis of power in nearly every religion. Right? Think about how many religions use a cross as a symbol. Right? A lot. So, this star, Regulus, is located in the heart of the lion in the Leo constellation. My writing is really bad, so I know you guys can't read this, but you can look at it afterwards. So there's four of these stars. There's north, south, east, and west. Okay? And these guardians of the four directions are the ones that control all the supernatural powers. They hold the gate. Whenever a person wants to come out of samsara and do some magic, what do? You call in the four corners. Right? You gotta get the cross. You want to come out of sin? What are you going to do? You're going to pray to the cross. Right? You want to light a candle for your boyfriend? Right? You're going to open the four corners. This is it right here. These four corners have different names in every religion. Okay, in China, the guardians of the four corners, we got the tiger, the dragon, right? This weird turtle snake thing. The turtle snake thing, the jury's still out. I haven't figured out the mystery there. But it's a creature that's like half turtle, half snake, but like having sex with itself, and it's really creepy and weird, and is born from the intestines of this famous warrior in China that spills it into the river. It's really gross and weird. So the south is the phoenix. That's the redbird gate, is in the south. Okay? The north is the phoenix. Is the lion. Right? So they like kind of look at each other and oppose each other. So a griffin is what? The lion and the phoenix combined together in one beautiful creature. Right? So these also have archangel affiliations. We got Michael in the north. We got Uriel in the south. We got Raphael in the east. We got Gabriel in the west. Those are the guardians of those directions. They hold down or control those directions. Now, you might think, well, what's a direction? What does that mean? Do you guys know? Like, what does it mean who cares about directions? What does that mean? Directions are what propel movement of everything on planet Earth. Planet Earth goes into Polaris. We go around on our little axis, which is dictated by what? A star. These stars are fixed in their orbit. They're not all over the place, right? They hang out. They're pretty set, like Polaris, but nothing is as stable as Polaris, right? Now, we all get to use our GPS, right? But back before all these things, this stuff was very important, right? All the time. And it contains within it, if you do research into the guardians of the four directions, it contains all the secrets of the natural world, essentially, right? Who uses these? Priests, shamans, wizards, witches, any human being that can transcend or pop up out of this Ouroboros little samsara is going to use this stuff, right? Is that interesting to you guys? Could be important. If the apocalypse comes, you got to get out of the Ouroboros, okay? So, this is why the information is here. So you guys can all look at what I wrote down there at your leisure afterwards, but basically, it shows the position of those four stars. Those also mark the period of the Earth in its orbit when it gets to fall equinox, spring equinox, summer solstice, and winter solstice, okay? So it's the it's metaphor, it's spiritual, and it's literally physical of the passage of the Earth through outer space. You guys understand that? So it's hitting what? Above and below, right? So this setup in Egypt is trying to mirror or emulate heaven and present it upon the earth, basically. You guys know that? We're going to talk about that more when we talk about the pyramids, but that's basically what's going on there. And the Sphinx provides the guardian to the entryway. So the title of this lecture is The Riddle of the Sphinx. How many of you guys know the Riddle of the Sphinx? Any of you guys read Oedipus? It's a terrible story. You'll get super depressed. I don't advise it. It's like a soap opera though, so it's pretty good. Oedipus, do you guys all know like Oedipal, like when someone says it's Oedipal? So you guys know the gist, right? This is a man that was bludgeoned by fate, by several unfortunate circumstances, right? Kills his father, has sex with his mother, all these terrible things happen, and he's bummed out, okay? In the story, he has to get into Thebes, and there's a Sphinx that's guarding the entryway, okay, the gatekeeper. And according to the story, Oedipus can't get through unless he answers the Sphinx's riddle. He's presented with this riddle. And the riddle, you guys, I tracked down This is the original form of the first version. It's a translation of the Riddle of the Sphinx that was found on a vase in 450 BC. Okay? So, it's pretty good. Are you guys ready to hear the Riddle of the Sphinx? It says, a thing there is whose voice is one, whose feet are 4 and 2 and 3. So mutable a thing are none, that moves in earth or sky or sea. When on most feet this thing doth go, its strength is weakest, and its pace must slow. That's the riddle. Okay? You guys know what Oedipus answers? Yeah. Man. Now this is where I had another discovery, which came to me in a dream. Everyone thinks the answer to the Riddle of the Sphinx is man. However, we must look at the context of the story. Who is Oedipus? The word Oedipus means someone whose foot is all messed up. It means swollen foot, okay? In the story, Oedipus has a cane, and he's depicted in paintings and pictures. He's got a cane, and his foot's all jacked up, okay? There's very famous oil paintings of Oedipus when he's meeting the Sphinx, and he's got his cane, and he's got his foot all janky, okay? So, everyone says the answer is man, because man walks on 4 legs. When you're a baby, you crawl. You walk on 2 legs when you're grown up. When you get old, you use a cane. But look at this. No one else could answer the Sphinx's riddle. Only Oedipus. Was Oedipus an old man with a cane? No, he was very young. But check it out. Oedipus had a cane when he was talking to the Sphinx. See what I'm saying? The 3 legs Oedipus had in that moment when he was having the conversation. So the answer to the Sphinx is not only man, it is Oedipus himself. The answer to the riddle of the Sphinx is that it's him. I am. I am is the answer to the riddle of the Sphinx. Okay? It's not just man. The reason Oedipus got the answer is because he was who he was in that moment when he was facing the Sphinx. Do you guys understand? To get through the portal to heaven, you must be whole and completely yourself and know yourself. Right? Know who you are. That is how you get through. So then, this is so good. I asked the I Ching, you guys can ask I Ching anything, you know. So I asked it, what's the answer to the riddle of the Sphinx? You guys can ask divination systems these things. Everyone only asks about like their money and like stuff like that. But you can also, FYI, ask it what the answer to the riddle of the Sphinx is. The I Ching answers me with hexagram 32, which first of all are both numbers in the riddle itself, which is always funny how I Ching is with numbers. 32 in the I Ching is the holy alchemical marriage. It's marriage. But the key word to it is consistency or endurance or strength. But if you look at the old Chinese for that hexagram, the picture of it is literally a heart on a boat that's going across a river. Okay? And it literally means steady your heart. To use it as a boat to cross the river, which is fear, or samsara, or the Ouroboros, or whatever you want to call it, right? So the I Ching answered that is having courage, right? A steady heart, not freaking out, right? So this reminded me, and then right when I was figuring that out, you guys, and then with my kids, they wanted to watch The Never-Ending Story.
I just said that.
Oh my God, yeah! So when we were watching it, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this! I was like freaking out because it was like so synchronistic, and it happened right then. So for those of you guys, I know I'm getting all excited, for those of you guys that have seen The Never-Ending Story, what does Atreyu have to go through? The oracles, which are of the southern and the north, which is the freaking griffin, the phoenix, and the lion. And Atreyu has to make it through without getting freaked out. And first he watches the big, strong warrior guy right? He's got all his armor. He looks all like badass. He's all like, yeah, I got this. And then the Sphinxes, little watchers, they're like, oh, you think you can get through? No, no. And they put the kibosh. And then Atreyu has to get through, and he does get scared, but what happens? He doesn't give up. The other guy got scared, and then he's like, oh, what do I do? What do I do? It's not just that you can't be scared. So what if you're scared? You're going to get scared. No one cannot be scared, right? Come on. But you have to be scared and keep going. That's the difference. What does Atreyu do then? He just runs. He's like, I'm just going to go. So you have to go. You have to be so concentrated, not your heart all flip-floppy. Maybe I'm a hero. Maybe I'm not a hero. That's not going to fly if you want to get through the gate. You got to be a hero, whether you make it or you don't make it. Right? That's the secret of the Sphinx in terms of never-ending story. Right? And it's funny, if you look at the Sphinxes, they're lions with lady heads and wings, right? In the never-ending story. So, you have to get through fear somehow, right? Not just like not be scared. This idea that Oedipus answers it and he comes into himself, what happens in the story is he gets acceptance. There's no like magical stuff that happens except that he's allowed entrance. But what does happen, Oedipus is all messed up. All these terrible things have happened. He's a suffering soul. Okay? Pretty much every bad thing you can imagine happens to Oedipus. And yet when he looks into the eyes of the Sphinx and he sees himself, he accepts himself. Okay? And he's like, well, I guess here I am. Let's do this, right? So he doesn't fight who he is. He doesn't complain. He doesn't say, God, I wish I didn't kill my dad. I mean, I'm sure he does say that, but he accepts it and then continues, right? So there's also this story hidden in the Sphinx of being able to just be cool, to be calm. That's it, hexagram 32. Keep your heart cool. Don't get all crazy, right? And if you look at the stories of the apocalypse, okay, so it goes back to the apocalypse now. We're going to go back into apocalypse mode. So you guys heard in the riddle, everyone knows the feet thing, right? The 4, the 3, and the 2. But what was that first line that I said? Did you guys hear that? Anyone remember? Yeah. A thing whose voice is one. What is that talking about? A thing whose voice is one. Okay, if that is a reference to mankind, what does that mean? That's like an amazing sentence. There is a thing there is whose voice is one. Okay, now we got to go back to the Bible. And another current event, I love how my lecturers line up with stuff that's like happening in the world. On September 25th, coming up, we're going to have the Feast of Trumpets. This is all tied in with Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, you guys. On September 25th is the Feast of Trumpets. In Matthew, in the Bible proper, 24:31, it says, gather together his elect from the 4 winds, from one end of heaven to the other. And this is talking about what happens on that day of trumpets. You guys know what the trumpet is? In Hebrew, it's called a shofar. It's a big ram horn that they blow. Have you guys ever seen one of these? They're awesome. They're so incredible. Have you heard a shofar? Wow. Okay? So the shofar is this horn. It's a trumpet that the angels call at the apocalypse to gather everybody out and let them cross through up into Notorious G.O.D. All the cherubim are going to call the call of the one voice, have everyone reassemble, right? And then everyone goes. Now, check this out. Here's what Maimonides says about the shofar. he says, there is an old Hebrew apocryphal saying that says, sleeping ones awaken from your sleep, is what the